myself because I know a lot of people don't see me here a whole lot because I'm not here a whole lot. I was the dance manager last year, and then Taylor and I kind of switched. She took over for me. So I teach the adaptive dance class Tuesday nights and fill in for Little Jim and do the social media majority of the time, and yeah, so anyway, that's me. So I was asked to do this training very specifically to talk on the topic of how to manage challenging behaviors. So by raise of hand, think of your classes. Have you come across an individual or an experience that was pretty challenging?
Pan to Lexi.
Okay. I think adults or kids, like in a learning environment, you're always going to come across that, right? Like we're not exempt from that here. So I just kind of put a lot of thought into this of just kind of trying to like narrow it down to just like a few takeaways so we're not overwhelmed and it's just easy to digest and say, let's just work on these couple of things that I think will make a difference. And hopefully we can like have just some conversation and maybe like some ideas that we can bounce around to help each other. But ultimately these are kind of like some 4 tips that I came up with. So the first and foremost, I put get to the root. Obviously it is like, I would say 9 times out of 10, behavior is communication. That's like the first line I put on that. So if you're seeing behavior, that child, that student is trying to communicate something. So we kind of have to play detective in that moment, and it can be asking them questions, it can be observing, it can be something as simple as like, did you eat before you came to practice today? Or did you sleep well last night? Some of the other things I put in here, like, are they seeking attention? Like, we get such a little sliver of these students' lives here at the gym. We have no idea what their lives are like at school, at home. Their home environment could be super stressful. Maybe they're getting bullied at school. Like, we get like such a sliver. And so sometimes like the attention seeking is like, I just want to be noticed because I don't get noticed all day long. But if I come here and I act out, I'm gonna get some attention, okay? So it could be seeking attention, avoiding work. They don't wanna work, okay? Especially like the littles, you know, they're just like, no, I just wanna play. Like, I don't wanna work, are you kidding me? Hungry, tired, stressed. Do they have an invisible disability? This one's a little more sensitive because you can't just outright be like, you know, do you have
ADHD?
Like, please do not do that. But if you're seeing a behavior that is like reoccurring, and we go through these things, and it's like, it is not resolving. Like, then I said here, meet with the student or the parent before class, or reach out via email, have the office reach out, like brainstorm ways to help, like take that proactive approach and say, Johnny has been really disruptive in class for 4 weeks now, and we've tried this, he doesn't seem motivated by this, so we want him to have the best experience here. Help us figure out a way to make it more successful for us and for him. And that's just like where the conversation can start. And then sometimes they might say, well, he does have ADHD. By the time he comes to class at 6 o'clock at night, the meds are like worn off, you know, and then it's like, oh, okay, like that makes sense. And then together, or through a manager, like if you need a manager to like handle the situation for you, or the office if that's the route you need to go, there's conversations that can be had that can really like get to the meat of maybe why that behavior's there. So I put here that we want them to get the most out of their time here with us at Mountain West. So anything you guys want to add to that as far as just like getting to the root of maybe why they're being so challenging? Or maybe something that's worked for you to be like, oh my gosh, okay, just that simple thing got to the root of it.
I will add in that a lot of times it is resolved as simple as asking them, hey, what's going on today?
Yeah.
Or even like, how's your day going? And then they'll tell you, my grandma, she said this thing that, sometimes just talking to them and getting them to express what they're experiencing, just letting it out. Sometimes that can help. Sometimes it doesn't help. But I would say when you're willing to like meet them where they're at, like wherever they're at, whatever kind of day they're having, if just talking them through it and kind of just stepping back for a second can help them remove that from the behavior that's going on in class.
I think too, just humans across the board, we all want to feel seen, right? And especially kids, it's like, whether they're like teenagers really struggling with their self-confidence or whatever it is, or little kids who are like, look at me, like, see me. We all want to feel seen, and I think even that simple suggestion of just like, how are you doing? Or think of like unique questions of like, did anything weird happen at school today? Not just like, how are you doing? Are you doing okay? Did you have a good day?
Yeah.
Yep, doing good. You're not gonna get a whole lot, but like, as you're stretching, be like, somebody tell me something dramatic that happened at school, or like, I don't know, just unique questions that might draw out more feedback. So
I have a crier in one of my classes, will touch her hand on something that she didn't expect to touch and starts bawling. And so usually it's not something really big, but the thing that I found that works the best is I'm like, are you sad? And she's like, and then I melt into a sadness puddle, from inside out, and go to the ground, and I ask her if she's so sad that she's gonna melt into a sadness puddle, and then she starts giggling, and I say no, and then she goes, no, and then I go, oh, so you're like joy. Oh, okay, and then she stops crying, because usually there's not actually something that's really bothering her, she just cries.
yeah,
So
Yeah.
that's what's worked best for me, is just
That's-
making them laugh.
and I think distraction is we'll kind of get to that, but distraction can sometimes be the best antidote to shifting behavior quickly. It's just just put the attention on you, and I'm gonna melt into a puddle.
Yeah, I go all the way to the ground.
Yeah, but you validated how she felt.
Yeah.
You didn't just brush off you're fine, toughen up, you're good, let's keep going, okay, move on. You took that little bit of extra time to validate that feeling, and it seems like it worked.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anybody else?
I learned that kids who might, from observation, have a little attention struggle, right? When you're trying to explain something and they don't, they're not sitting still long enough to do it, or you're calling their name and they don't hear you, they literally don't hear you.
Yeah.
So, if you've called someone's name 5 or 6 times, get to their level, look in their eyes, say, okay, can you hear me? Or maybe I oftentimes start with, do you hear me when I call your name? A lot of times it's no. So that tells me that they are not hearing most of what I'm saying, right? Because there's so much going on, especially at night in the gym. So you get down to their, look in their eyes and say, okay, so this is what we're doing. Can you do this for me? So one task at a time, and break it down that way, because kids with attention problems, literally, they cannot hear outside things.
Yeah.
Unless you are focused on them, then they won't hear. So,
Yeah. And let's move on to this next part, because I'll kind of touch on that too. So step 1, get to the root of it. So think about your age group, think about kind of your audience that you're teaching, and think of ways that might be most effective for your audience, because it'll be very different from coaching team to little gym to my adapted kids, so okay, the next one is motivate versus control. And the first line in that part says the most effective way to change behavior is through motivation. So I know this is like kind of a silly analogy or comparison, but like you think of training a dog. They're highly motivated for treats, you know, and so they will work and work and work because that is what's motivating them. And so nobody likes to feel controlled, especially like little kids when they're still just like trying to like figure out the world around them. It's like, don't hold me back. I don't want to be controlled. I don't want to be told what to do. And over time, you know, older kids adapt and they know like what's acceptable or not. But nobody likes to feel controlled. I don't like to feel controlled. I want to be motivated. And that's what changes my behavior, is when I'm motivated to change. And so some ideas that I kind of just threw out here, and we can talk about this one too. It's just maybe goal setting. I know like teams and stuff are huge on the goal setting thing, but like why not preschool? Why not other classes and say, okay, you know, so-and-so has a really hard time sitting in their seat. Like they just have ants in their pants. Let's set a goal. Let's set a goal for them and say, okay, if you can make it to, I don't know how your class is structured, but like if you can make it from this point to this point, staying in your seat, we're gonna create a reward for that. It's a sticker, you get 2 extra minutes playtime, you know, you've gotta adapt it to each program, but goals can be huge, and put a reward attached to it, because that's motivating. And figure out what the reward is, because it's not gonna be blanketed across the board all the time. Like I'm probably not as motivated to do something that like you would be motivated by. And so kind of taking that extra step to say, okay, what is gonna motivate this girl and this boy? And anyway, so that's an idea. I do this a lot at home with my daughter with autism, and it simplifies like the thinking process for kids who have attention struggles. Is the if-then statements. So it's as simple as that. Like if you can give me, I don't know, I'm trying to think of like a team example. Like if you can give me,
I can give you one.
Like,
if you do your kip with straight legs.
with straight legs,
Then
3 times, then what's their motivator?
If you do your, sorry, let me change it. If you do
Yeah.
your glide swing 3 times with straight legs, then you can do your kip.
Yeah.
That's
Or-
a huge one that I use in rec. When I was coaching rec, I would use it all the time. If you do your pullover with straight legs, I'll let you do a back hip circle. It's a great way to motivate them without having to have like a piece of candy or like,
Yeah.
because
Like
then
having a
it's
physical
intrinsic.
yeah.
That they get to earn a new skill if they do it with the form you're asking.
Yeah. So we use that a lot, like with my daughter with behavior therapy, and we do a ton of it with my daughter. It's very easy, like the brain can process that very easily and just say, it's that cause and effect. If I do this, then this will happen. And so we break it down as simple as that. And so using those if-then statements. And you could try it, like start simple and say, okay, as a class, you're stretching, you're warming up. Okay, what's the goal for the class today? If we can all XYZ, then what's the motivator? Okay? Or, you know, like for my adaptive class tonight, not that I like really made them work for it, but I set it up to say, okay, if we get through our St. Patrick's lesson plan upstairs, then we get to go jump in the pot of gold, which is the foam pit. And so it was like, okay, their minds could say, this is happening now, and then we can do this. And it works. It's proven to work.
And I think it's important to note too, like what Amanda was saying about intrinsic motivation, that is something that Derek is really big on. Like every once in a while, the motivation being you get a jump in the pit or you get an extra stamp at stamp time is fine. But really trying to find motivation that is connected to what they're doing, what you want them to be doing, is so good. And that's what's actually helping them progress too. So you get like good behavioral and progressions out of it at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that kind of leads into this next one. I I suggested is give them a specific role in the class. So I don't know necessarily with like the older girls, maybe you guys can think of an example, but like little kids, like if you have someone that is just like tricky, give them a specific job. Like, you are my line leader. Like, that is your job for the class.
Or the big kids love being little too. Just
Yeah,
little
yeah.
kids.
Just like I put right here, a demonstrator. Like, you know, like that can be motivating. I'm like, okay, everyone's eyes are gonna be on me. I've got to step up, you know? So think of like the different programs and the types of roles that you could assign to different individuals. And, you know, like little kids, of course, they're all gonna fight over like, no, I wanna be line leader, I know, you know, and just say, okay, well, this is how it works. If you can sit in your chair, if you can then you get to be line leader. And if we all get to be line leader, then we're gonna pick, you know, you get to be line leader today and you get to be line leader tomorrow. I don't know. You know, each program's so different, but yeah.
And I think it's important too to remember that each of your kids are gonna have like a different like level of what their good behavior looks like. In my kinder class, I have a little girl who has autism, and she has never once like sat for transportation in her whole life.
Yeah.
And on Friday, she was like sitting, and she even said to me, I am a whole new Ray today. And I was like, yes, you are. But like, even though she was still getting up and like running around every once in a while, she did have a lot of times where she was sitting down. And so I told her, I said, you listened so well today, you get to be the line leader. And maybe like to the outside eye, it would look like she was a crazy and she was not listening. But me understanding my class, I knew that she was putting in so much effort to listen and to have good intention. And that needs to be rewarded just as much as the kids who are listening picture
Always.
perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Agreed.
Yep.
I love that.
I love that
super
too.
valuable.
Yeah. Okay. Another idea I put on here is reset focus with a brain break game or dance. Do you guys know what brain breaks are? I learned them just through my kids, but basically just letting the brain take a break. Like, okay, let's stop thinking about all the things I have to do. Let's just like be silly for 5 seconds and like, okay, everyone, like give me your best impression of this, or let's just do a quick little like TikTok dance, do the floss, do the, you know, whatever it is, just like take a brain break and just say, okay, I'm losing the class here. We're kind of out of control. There's too much talking, or kids are running away, or whatever it is, and just say, all right, okay. We're gonna just shift the focus somewhere else for a minute, and we're gonna just play a game. We're gonna do duck, duck, goose for 2 minutes, and hopefully like shifting that focus and letting their minds just like chill out for a second instead of like stay on task. Sometimes kids just need a break. So, and then the last thing I put is just ask them what would be motivating. So, anything else on that point?
As like a brain break for my girls, I say girls a lot in my class. And so 2 weeks ago, I realized that I wasn't really getting their attention when I say girls. So now when I say girls, they say coach in all my classes. So I'll say girls and they'll say coach, and then I'll say girls weird and they'll say it how I said it, or then I'll say it super quiet and they'll say it super quiet.
Yeah.
And then I say it super loud and they say it super loud, and all of my kids love it, and it like immediately gets all their attention now when I say girls. Then they're all like, oh, I have to say coach.
Yeah.
I will say my like go-to every single time it works with my 14-year-olds. When there's like chaos and you're like, oh my gosh, how can I like immediately pull this in? Just start counting down. I don't know what it is, but like when you start counting down, people are like, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen? Like if I say get in line, 5, 4, 3, they're like, oh my gosh, I gotta get in line. And like I said, they're 14, and I've used it in kinder, I've used it in rec, I've used it in ninja. it works. I don't know what, something about the human psychology, when you count
Yes.
down, people need to just
When there's
listen.
just like a random disruption, it's just like, I mean, even sometimes doing something silly of like, if your class is so out of control, what would they do if you just like went and sat in the middle of the circle and just like sat down?
I think they would copy you. I think they would come join you.
Like preschool, like what would they do if you were just like at your wit's end and you were like, I'm just gonna sit here and wait until they like see what I'm doing. You know, or you go to the middle of the room and do a handstand.
Something I just go, what are we doing?
But like,
And then they all go.
Yeah, it's like,
Or even like with I do this with my team a lot, like when someone is just being like grumpy grump, I will like call them out on being grumpy and then I'll be like, you need to have a dance party. And I will start doing the most embarrassing dances and they were grumpy and so they just like and I'm like, nope, we're dancing, and then they start dancing and they get out of it and I'm like, okay, great, go back to what you're doing.
yeah. So, yeah. I lost my train of thought, but
I've done that on camp before when I'm like about to tell them to do seat drops. I'm like, okay, we're gonna sit down and take a nap. Oh, we're in gymnastics, never mind. And they all laugh every time, even if I've done it like 12 times throughout the class. They're like, why are you sitting down? And then the kids that aren't paying attention, they're like, why is she laying down on the tramp? Is she okay?
Yeah.
And they all are like,
But I think littles, I mean, even big kids too, like just silly little games of like, okay, while we're waiting, you know, let's play telephone in line. Like, let's share a funny secret, you know, and like, you know, as you're doing vault or whatever, the other girls, you know, they're playing
That's
telephone.
not a bad idea,
I don't know,
actually.
just think outside the box, depending on your age group, and hopefully that helps.
I will say too, with holding your ground, especially like kinder tramp comes to mind. Sometimes waiting can make them realize, I guess, what they're doing. Like when I'm doing kinder tramp, I don't let them do tramp unless they're all sitting, which obviously there's like certain situations where that would be different, but I just sit there and I just wait until they're all ready, and they get bored. They're like, oh, I'm so sick of this, I'll just sit down. Like, so I would say
And
that,
sometimes the little 2-year-olds will stop being like looking at their phone, being like, "Sit down."
I
Like,
know,
you
yeah,
are 3,
seriously, it's
okay.
true. They're like, you need to sit. I'm like,
Yes.
what?
Yes, yep. Okay, so tip number 3 is hold your ground. And I don't want that to be confused with like having control and dominion over your class. It's just having predictability. So the first bullet point is, do your kids know, like, has it been made clear and in simple form, like what the expectation of the class is? So maybe if it hasn't ever been done or it's been a while, maybe that just needs to be brought up and just say, okay, in Miss Shelley's class, we raise our hand if we want to be called on to speak, and just reiterate those simple, clear expectations of how the class needs to be run, because there might be a good majority that are like, I don't know what the rule is. Like, it changes depending on who's coaching me, you know, like
Kids want consistency.
consistent. And that's my next bullet point. Be consistent and follow through. So like going back to that if and then statement, if you've set up a statement that says, okay, if we do this, then we will do this, stay consistent with it. If you waver, you've lost the trust of the class. So you've got to set yourself up for success to say, okay, if you guys listen and get through this whole circuit quietly, we will do a dance party for 2 minutes at the end of class. Like, no questions asked. And follow through and do it, okay? And then model the type of behavior you expect. That's kind of self-explanatory. If you look bored and exhausted out of your mind, how do you expect your class to be like psyched to be at gymnastics at 8 o'clock at night? Like, I know that that's hard sometimes. You just have to leave your baggage at the door, your emotions, your hormones, your stress, everything at the door, and just say, all right, for the time that I'm here, I'm gonna model the type of behavior I expect out of my kids. And then maintain self-control when things are out of control. Simple, easier said than done, but like if you've got kids like mouthing you, I mean, I don't know the situation in all the programs, but like if you've got a really heated situation and you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna lose my marbles, like keep your cool, you do your best to keep your cool. Bring it in. And my last tip is if you need to ask for help, that's okay. Like parent and taught, if there is a kid that is just wild and is like in danger of hurting themselves or someone else, kindly ask that their parent, not a parent and child, it would be
Like a kinder one.
yeah. Like kindly ask that their parent comes and like hover over them and just say, I can't seem to like hold their attention and I'm worried that they're gonna get hurt. Could you come be an extra set of hands? Or whatever it is. If you're feeling like going back to like the root cause, that first tip, sometimes it's talking to the student or talking to a parent to say like, I need some help. I'm not connecting with this kid. They don't really respect me. I don't feel like I can like help them reach their full potential in my class, so I need your help. It's okay. It's okay to ask for help. And then, well, before we move on, anything on that? Holding your ground?
I just think it's important to know, I mean, like, we all like go through this, and I think that sometimes it's very easy, like I find myself looking at other teams or even looking at rec classes and being like, how do they have their crap together? And I like do not. And like we all go through this and we all have kids who all struggle bus. And I think like at least for me, just knowing that sometimes makes it a little bit better.
Yeah.
And so like sometimes I just need the validation. So I like go up to Amanda and I'll be like, Amanda.
I know. 10 times a day I come to you or you come to me.
Just like for the validation of that and like,
Venting.
we are always here to help, but also if you just need a moment of like validation, we can also do that. Like,
Yeah. And if you ever have like a situation with a kid that you've not been through before, probably one of us has been through it. Or
been through a
other
while.
managers or people who've been coaching for a while. At this point, I feel like there's not very many surprises, but there are sometimes. So if you have something that you're like, I really don't know how to help this kid, or like it's a continuing problem, find one of us, and I feel like we'll have some ideas that can help.
Yep. For sure. Anyone else?
I will say the model your behavior, kind of like making sure that you're always consistent and like being energetic and I don't know how to speak today. Anyways, your kids do notice. I had 1 week where life absolutely sucked and I thought that I was really covering up, but I had one class that was like, are you okay?
like no.
No. They're like, you're normally like 10 times louder and all of this. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry. Don't worry about it.
And then you came up to me and said, am I quieter than usual?
Yeah, that was. But yeah, they do notice.
You know what? That like perfectly rolls into like my fourth tip is to lead with love, because connection is everything. And I know that's like cheesy, like eye roll, I'm sure, but like the fact that like your class like cared about you, you know, that can go both ways. Like if you build these like good trusting relationships with your students and kids, like if you're having a hard day, they will help carry you. They will help like love on you and hopefully like cheer you up too. You know, like we're not perfect. We're gonna have our grumpy hard days, but I think overall, like if we lead and coach and teach out of love, and the main goal is like we want our kids to feel connected to us and what they're learning, I think naturally a lot of those behaviors will dissipate. And if you go through all these strategies and at the end of the day they feel connected and that you're coming from a place of love and you really want that child to succeed, then that's the best we can do, you know? Like, I don't know what else you could do if you're truly leading out of love and connection. Yeah.
Paula and I have a girl on our team who we have been riding the struggle bus with. And yesterday I just went to Alyssa for advice, and Alyssa said, have you talked to her about how important it is that gymnastics is a safe place where she gets to have fun and not worry about anything else? Because sometimes kids come to us with problems that like, oh my gosh, I'm not getting paid enough to be your parents' divorce therapist. Like, okay. Or like, I mean, like, I feel like sometimes I'm like a therapist and I'm like, nope.
Yes.
And it can be a lot and it can be overwhelming, but just like reiterating that, I always say, well, my favorite part about gymnastics is that we get to be here and we don't have to worry about anything except for gymnastics. And you are safe here and you have coaches who love you here.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's so important for every single kid in this gym to know that. And at the end of the day, Crystal always says, like, most of the kids that we coach are not gonna end up being collegiate athletes or Olympians, but that doesn't mean that we don't want them to take something from being here.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure most of us have like done like sports. I have taken things from coaches and I still like remember the coaches who I knew loved me, and I remember the coaches who I knew absolutely did not love me.
And it was probably much more motivating
Yeah.
to work for the coaches that loved you.
Yeah.
Right? And I think too, going back to like connection, it's not just about us like connecting with the kids too. Like, create an environment where they're all feeling pretty loved and connected with each other. And so if someone's struggling, someone's having a hard day, or even the little itty bitties, if someone's just emotional, like, how cute would that be to have like the littles, like, I think so-and-so needs a big bear hug from the class right now. Like, they're kind of struggling today. Like, should we all give them a big hug? Or let's do a high five train because, you know, so-and-so is just struggling. Or like the older ones, you know, it's different for each age group, but like, how cool to have teams and classes that are like, I get to show up and these kids aren't gonna judge me, they're just gonna love me, support me, rally behind me. Like, I love nothing more than when I get videos to post on social media of like all the athletes like cheering for the girl that just is like working on a new skill. And I'm like, that is what it's about. Like that, I mean, the skill is great, but like the cheerleading behind that person it's phenomenal. Like that's what this is all about. It's just helping each other succeed. So anyway, any other thoughts on that tip?
I was just gonna say, today in my intermediate, at the beginning of class, I only had like 4 or 5 girls, and a lot of them are almost ready for advanced, so I had them all do a couple of like the skills they needed. And jumping to a front support, they were all yelling like the other person's name, and then they would do their cast and they'd be like, 1, 2, 3, and it was like the whole class. I was like, this is so cute. I wish I could do this every class, because they were all just cheering each other on for the simple thing, like a little cast that they all have.
Yes, but like, isn't that beautiful? Like, isn't that amazing? Yeah, I saw a video recently of this darling little Chinese boy in his karate class, and he had to like jump over this like big thing, and it was like in this belt promotion ceremony or something. And so there's like an audience, and he's probably, I don't know, 7-ish, and all of his classmates are lined up, and he like runs and he can't get up. And he goes back and he runs and he tries again and can't give up. And you just see like, he's so embarrassed, so just like defeated. And then the most beautiful thing happened. Like, all the classmates got up, rallied around him, like hugged him, and then they started this like chant, like, you got this, you can do this. And then like built the audience up. And then this little kid like went back and he just ran and he jumped over it. And it was like, don't you wish you like had that support in life always? Just like, you know, people at the grocery store, like, you got this, Katie.
Your
like,
card will work.
You can check out with your girl that's screaming, like, you got this, you know. But like, how cool would that be if like our classes all felt that way? Like, without a doubt, we all had each other's backs. We all supported and wanted to see each other succeed, you know. So anyway, that's it. 4 tips.
This is very cute.
I feel like I need to say